relationship with the royal family and what little was left, frankly, of their own reputations. Last week was mostly sycophantic. It was informed me that she's a bit of a cut and run.
Right.
Throughout her life, and all her family, her father,
yes,
her ex-husband. This is the race bombshell that Meghan drops that Harry then talks about. Let's watch. It's odd, though, because you were comfortable about sharing everything.
Piers Morgan just dropped something wild about Meghan Markle, and this time it's not just another headline. He's talking about a trail that leads somewhere nobody expected. Not a palace, not a hospital, somewhere completely different. And here's the question that's making everyone freeze. What if it wasn't real? The pregnancy everyone watched, celebrated, and believed in. What if it wasn't how it seemed? This isn't gossip. This is a story about a costume shop, a custom request, and a secret nobody saw coming. Stick around because you're not ready for this. Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe because the details coming up, they're going to flip everything. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. Trust me, you'll want to see this. So here's where things get interesting. The place at the center of all this, it's not some random costume shop you'd find at the mall.
Meghan allegedly photographed around wealthy older men. Meghan connected to a Soho House director who knew everyone.
Not where you go to buy a cheap vampire outfit for Halloween or pick up face paint for a party. We're talking about something completely different. A professional studio that specializes in creating hyper-realistic prosthetics for the film and television industry. The kind of work that makes you do a double take when you're watching a movie because you can't believe it's fake. These shops are seriously impressive. They build body parts that look so real, actors can wear them under the brightest studio lights, and nobody watching can tell the difference. We're talking about scars that look like they've been there for years, injuries that make you wince, limbs that move naturally, and pregnancy bellies that look and feel completely authentic. No amateur hour here, the stuff that wins awards for special effects makeup and prosthetics. The kind of craftsmanship that takes years to master. Now, here's the thing about these places. They don't get random walk-in customers. You can't just stroll in off the street and order something on a whim. Their client list reads like a Hollywood directory.
Creating self-serving snooze fest, said another pundit. Well, that was me, actually. Now, against this deluge of derision, Netflix today.
Film studios working on major releases. Production companies with massive budgets. Directors who need perfection on camera. When this particular shop owner says someone reached out with a specific request, that alone was unusual enough to remember. But here's where it goes from unusual to absolutely wild. According to the shop owner, the message didn't come from a film set, not from a TV production or some independent movie project. The request allegedly came from someone connected to Meghan personally, from her team. And listen, in this industry, when someone from the royal family shows up in your inbox, you remember it. You don't forget that kind of inquiry. It's not every day that someone from that world reaches out to a prosthetics shop. And the message wasn't just casual, not someone browsing options or asking general questions about what's possible. According to what the shop owner claims,
here is not in any way gentle. Because it begins with a man who simply wanted to be loved and ended with him discovering a path.
The request came loaded with information. Real, specific, detailed information. The kind of details that tell you this is serious. The message allegedly included measurements. Not rough estimates, but precise numbers. Fitting instructions that showed whoever sent this knew exactly what they needed and how it needed to work. Technical notes that only a professional would understand. Get this. The request was for a custom-fitted pregnancy prosthetic. Not off the shelf, not a basic prop for a quick photo shoot. Built specifically for one person's body. Designed to look natural from every angle. Made to move the way a real pregnancy belly moves. The level of detail in that request told the shop owner this wasn't for a charity event or a casual costume. It was meant to be worn, to be seen, to be believed.
Stood up to all this, and the world's biggest victims are not the people of Ukraine or the people battling COVID or
Here's the part that makes everything shift from, odd to, wait, hold on a second. Because the shop owner made it clear in all their years working in this industry, creating prosthetics for countless productions, they'd never received a request like this from someone in that world. Never. Film sets, all the time, but from someone connected to the royal family, a first. And that one detail, that single fact about how completely outside the normal pattern it was, turned this from just another order into something people can't stop talking about. So let's talk about what was actually in that message, because the details, they're what make this whole thing impossible to ignore. Not someone asking vague questions or fishing for information. According to the shop owner, the request came with specifics. Real specifics. The kind of information that tells you whoever sent this knew exactly what they were doing.
Well, Meghan got a bit of a shock herself when she invited 16-year-old head boy Acker Okoye up onto the stage to say a few words. He grabbed it.
First off, measurements. And not just basic numbers you'd find on a clothing tag. Precise, detailed measurements. The kind you'd need if you were building something custom that had to fit perfectly. Think about it like this. When you order a suit off the rack, you get generic sizing. Small, medium, large. But when you get a suit tailored, they measure everything. Every angle, every curve, every dimension. The message allegedly included numbers that would allow the shop to create something fitted to one specific person's body. Then there were the fitting instructions. Now here's where it gets technical. These prosthetics aren't just pieces of foam you strap on and call it a day. They're engineered. They have to sit correctly, move naturally, and look authentic from every possible angle. The instructions that came with this request showed whoever sent it understood how these things work.
Netflix, and don't take my word for it.
This promise of
questions to ask, information the shop would need to build something that could pass under scrutiny. That level of knowledge, it doesn't come from a quick Google search. And get this, there were precision notes included, technical details about how the prosthetic needed to function, instructions on movement when the person walked, specifications for how it should look when they sat down or stood up, requirements for appearing natural under different lighting conditions, professional-level specifications, the kinds of details you'd see on a Hollywood production where the director needs perfection, on a 40-foot screen in 4K. The shop owner claims the request was for a custom-fitted pregnancy prosthetic. Nothing generic, nothing one-size-fits-all that you could pull out of storage for multiple projects. Built from scratch for one person.
Who has built her career on calling out what others are too afraid to touch. Candace Owens. In her fiery style,
shaped exactly to match their body. Crafted to move like a real pregnancy belly. Authentic from every angle, whether someone was looking from the front, the side, or even from behind. The goal, according to what was requested, was for it to be indistinguishable from the real thing. Now, think about what that means. Building something like this isn't a weekend project. It takes time, skill, and serious attention to detail. The shop would need to create molds, test materials, adjust the fit, make sure everything moved naturally, a process that could take weeks, maybe longer, depending on how perfect it needed to be. And the level of detail in that original request told the shop owner someone wanted this done right. Here's what really got the shop owner's attention, though. In all their years building prosthetics for films, TV shows, and major productions, they'd handled countless requests.
Perfectly timed, perfectly dramatic. Almost like she doesn't want Discovery revealing what really went on.
Body parts, special effects, complex needs, but a request like this, with this level of detail coming from someone connected to a member of the royal family, never happened before. Not once. And that's saying something because this shop had worked on big projects with big names. Someone from that world reaching out, completely new territory. The shop owner was stunned, and honestly, who wouldn't be? These shops work with actors, makeup artists, special effects teams, people who need prosthetics for their job, characters they're playing, scenes they're filming. But this request came from a completely different world. Image matters differently there. Every public appearance gets photographed, analyzed, and remembered. And someone from that sphere was asking for something that would help create a very specific image. Now let's shift focus for a minute because there's someone else in this story who can't be ignored.
It's like luck and more like a calculated climb. Authors who study the celebrity-yacht relationship have described a system where
Prince Harry. During Meghan's pregnancy, Harry wasn't just standing on the sidelines. He was front and center, holding her hand at every public appearance, defending her in interviews, speaking out when he felt she was being treated unfairly. He was her voice when she said she felt voiceless, her shield when the criticism came. The supportive husband the world watched and, for the most part, admired. So when this claim about a prosthetic belly surfaces, a question emerges that nobody really wants to ask, but everyone's thinking, where was Harry in all of this? And here's the thing. There's really only two possible answers. Two paths this story can take. And honestly, neither one of them looks good. Path 1. Harry knew. If Harry knew about the prosthetic, if he was aware of what was happening, then he wasn't just a witness to the story.
Even his closest followers saw it coming. The cameras were rolling, his tone was steady, his expression sharper than usual.
He was part of creating it. He helped shape the narrative. He stood in front of cameras, gave interviews, shared emotional moments, all while knowing something the rest of the world didn't. That version of events paints Harry as someone who willingly participated in presenting a polished version of reality. Someone who saw what was behind the curtain and chose to keep it hidden. He defended the story publicly, protected it, made sure the world believed what they were seeing. Think about what that means. Each time Harry spoke about the pregnancy, talked about becoming a father, pushed back against criticism of Meghan, he would have been doing it while carrying this knowledge, not just keeping a secret, actively maintaining an illusion. And if true, then the image of Harry as the honest, vulnerable prince who stepped away from his former life to protect his family starts to crack.
Right, and that's why I wanted to get you on the program today. It was my suggestion to have you on to talk about this.
But Piers,
right?
and thank you so much.
Because how do you reconcile that with someone who helped create and maintain something that wasn't real? But then there's path 2. Harry didn't know, and honestly, this path might be even darker. Because how does that work? A man who lives with his pregnant wife every single day, not noticing something this significant? They weren't living in separate palaces. They were together, day in and day out, sharing their lives, their home, their experiences. So if Harry was kept in the dark, then there was a wall between them. Decisions being made behind closed doors, secrets being kept in a marriage that was supposed to be built on trust and partnership. Why would Meghan hide something like this from her own husband? And if she did, think about the foundation of their relationship. The level of trust between them. Everything happening behind the scenes while the world saw a fairy tale. None of it adds up. Neither path offers any comfort.
Who could offer what, and how to make introductions that served everyone involved. And Meghan, according to these reports, wasn't just along for the ride. She was
Harry knowing means he helped create something deceptive. Harry not knowing means his marriage carried a fracture that nobody saw. Either way, something breaks. The dream couple the world once cheered for suddenly looks human, complicated, and fragile. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of this whole thing. Not the allegation itself, but the implications for the two people at the center of it. Because regardless of which scenario is true, the story changes. The narrative shifts, and the carefully constructed image of a couple fighting against the world together starts to wobble. One question leads to a dozen more. Decisions made alone. Reality versus performance. And once those questions start, they don't stop. They just keep echoing, getting louder until someone finally answers them. Let's zoom out for a second and talk about what's really at stake here.
Documents are public, but the whispers are loud. The online talk is nonstop. And people who follow this closely say the timeline fits a little too perfectly.
Because when Meghan and Harry stepped away from their former lives, they didn't take much with them. Castles, gone, crowns, left behind, centuries-old institutions, not backing them up anymore. They walked away from all of that. And what did they take instead? Their story. Their narrative became everything. Think about how they rebuilt. They moved to California away from the scrutiny they said was suffocating them. Interviews started, deals got signed, projects launched. Every single move was built on one foundation: authenticity. People believed their struggle was real. The pain felt genuine. When they talked about feeling trapped, misunderstood, and pushed to the edge, audiences connected with it. That belief, that trust from millions became their currency. Netflix offered a deal. Spotify did too. Publishers wanted their books. Production companies lined up to work with them.
Floated in the air like perfume. Marcus had the access. Meghan had the charm. Together, according to insiders, they formed a
Why? Not titles or connections. Those were gone. Companies invested because of the narrative. Audiences connected with the journey. The transition from constrained life to independence felt authentic, raw, and relatable. Their brand wasn't about status anymore. It was about being real. Meghan built her identity around honesty about struggles, the loneliness, the lack of support, feeling silenced and controlled. Interviews, documentary moments, carefully chosen words, all reinforced a narrative of someone who survived difficulty and came out willing to speak truth. People admired it, supported it, believed in it. Harry positioned himself similarly. The protective husband who saw his wife suffering and made an incredibly difficult choice to walk away from everything he'd known, to save her, to protect their family.
So she's in Toronto, she's in Soho House, and she gets introduced by Marcus Anderson to Bennett.
Talking about not wanting history to repeat, learning from the past, choosing love over duty, that vulnerability, that openness about mental health struggles and fears connected deeply. Their entire new world was constructed on authenticity and truth. Millions of social media followers, speaking engagements, major brand partnerships, advocacy work taken seriously because people believed they were genuine. Opportunities, open doors, signed deals, all rested on audiences trusting the narrative. So when an allegation like this surfaces, especially involving something as personal as pregnancy, it doesn't just raise questions about one thing. It shakes everything. If people doubt one part, they look at all of it differently. Rewatching interviews with skepticism, reconsidering moments once taken at face value, wondering what else might have been shaped, controlled, or presented strategically. And here's the brutal truth. In the world they built, trust is everything.
He has now got the whole of America and the worst of the world, frankly, looking upon the palace, the monarchy, the Queen.
Not like having institutional backing where position is secured by bloodlines. Out here, without that support, credibility is all they've got. People believing them. And credibility, once questioned, is incredibly hard to rebuild. Cracks spread, doubts multiply. Suddenly, everything that seems solid feels uncertain. That's why this matters so much. Not just the claim itself, but what it threatens. The entire world they've built, partnerships, projects, future plans, depends on people trusting the narrative is real. And right now, that trust is being tested in a way nobody saw coming. Listen, once you start questioning one thing, it's almost impossible to stop the rest from tumbling out. Because if the belly wasn't real, if there was actually a prosthetic involved, then the mind naturally goes somewhere else.
Third year, Meghan Markle hardly spent any time at Northwestern University. According to people, she got started her yachting day.
To the next question, then another. It's like pulling on a thread. Once you start, the whole thing begins to unravel. So here's the question nobody really wants to say out loud, but everyone's thinking, who actually carried the children? If Meghan wasn't pregnant in the way the world believed she was, then someone else must have been. And that leads straight to the possibility of a surrogate. Now, using a surrogate isn't scandalous on its own. Plenty of people do it for completely valid medical or personal reasons. It's a legitimate choice. But the complication, why hide it? Think about the context. Meghan and Harry built their entire public image on transparency and breaking down barriers. They talked openly, mental health struggles, feeling trapped, difficulties in the spotlight. They positioned themselves as the couple willing to speak truth when others stayed silent. So if they used a surrogate, why not just say so?
Silence is where the story stops being about rumor and starts becoming something else, something more serious, something.
Why create this elaborate presentation of a traditional pregnancy if that's not what was happening? Maybe there were medical reasons they wanted to keep private. That's understandable. Everyone deserves health privacy. But then the public appearances with the belly, the photo shoots, the carefully staged moments of Meghan cradling her bump. If keeping things private was the goal, wouldn't stepping back from the public eye make more sense? Other members of their former world have done exactly that when they wanted discretion. Or maybe it was image-focused, maintaining a certain narrative, showing the world a picture-perfect pregnancy because that's what people expected to see. But if so, it contradicts everything they said about rejecting artificial standards and living authentically. You can't claim to be breaking free from control while simultaneously controlling your own presentation that carefully.
New life on her own terms. But what if everything we thought we knew about her was only the version she wanted us?
And then there are the children themselves, Archie and Lilibet. Their existence isn't in question. Real here, part of the family. But if there was a surrogate involved, if the pregnancy wasn't what it appeared to be, then questions emerge about why that information was kept hidden. Fear of judgment, concern about public reaction, something else entirely. Here's what makes this even more tangled. The interviews. The Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, all the times Meghan spoke about her pregnancy experience. The loneliness she described, the lack of support, the emotional weight of carrying a child while dealing with intense scrutiny. If those experiences weren't tied to a physical pregnancy, then what were they actually describing? The emotional journey of becoming a mother through surrogacy. Something else entirely, or maintaining the narrative. One question leads to 10 more. If there was a surrogate, who? Someone they knew personally or hired through an agency.
And in photographs, always standing beside Meghan Markle like a shadow that never fades. Marcus Anderson.
How was that kept quiet in a world where every detail gets examined? Who else knew? Just the two of them, close family or staff members. And if others knew, how many people were keeping this secret? How was that coordinated? What conversations happened behind the scenes to keep the story consistent? And here's maybe the most uncomfortable question of all: why does it matter? People caring so much about how someone else's children came into the world. On one level, it shouldn't. How a family is created is personal. But on another level, your entire public identity built on authenticity, millions of people invested emotionally in your story, career depending on people believing you're genuine, then the way you present major life events becomes...
There's only one Meghan I can actually still be civil to, and it's the one sitting to my left. The other one...
You know, she's getting back in...
part of the larger question of trust. The questions don't have answers yet. Maybe they never will. But they exist now, floating in the space between what was shown and what might have been real. And once questions like these take root, they're incredibly hard to shake. Doubt is a strange thing. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets or crash through the door demanding attention. It slips in quietly, almost unnoticed at first. Just a whisper in the back of your mind. A small question that lingers a little too long. And then suddenly, without you even realizing it's happening, everything looks different. That's exactly what happened after this claim surfaced. People didn't riot in the streets or flood social media with angry posts. They just paused. And in that pause, something shifted. The moments everyone once saw as genuine started looking different.
Not his viewers, not his critics, and definitely not the team behind Meghan Markle's carefully controlled image.
Not fake, not staged necessarily, just altered. Like watching a movie for the second time and noticing things you missed the first viewing. The belly rubs Meghan shared during royal tours. Those sweet maternal moments that photographers captured and the world adored. People are looking at those photos again now, but through a completely different lens. Where they once saw tenderness, questions are emerging. Was that genuine affection or careful performance? The instinct of a mother or the action of someone maintaining an image? The photos of her holding her bump, hand carefully positioned, fingers splayed across fabric, camera catching the perfect angle. Once these seemed like natural moments of a woman celebrating pregnancy. Now people are analyzing them. Hand positioning, photo timing, moment staging. Not with hatred or anger, just with new eyes seeing things that weren't noticed before. And the interviews, the interviews.
Yeah, right here. Now, the interesting part of it all, guys, is that these girls didn't need to be.
Meghan speaking about loneliness during pregnancy, the lack of support she felt, the weight of carrying a child while dealing with intense public scrutiny, the tears she shed talking about how difficult it all was. People believed every word when they first heard it. They felt sympathy. They connected with her pain, but now those same people are rewatching those clips, and the questions creep in. Describing a physical pregnancy or the emotional journey of becoming a mother through other means, talking about her own experience or something she felt she had to say to maintain the story. The documentaries, the speeches, the carefully chosen words and interviews, all of it is being examined again. Not necessarily with suspicion, but with hesitation. That's the key difference. People aren't angry, they're uncertain.
House regular. Misha Nono arranged the blind date, also a Soho House member. Serena Williams, another member.
Wondering if what they saw was the whole picture or just one carefully crafted version of it. Here's the thing about doubt, it doesn't need proof to do its damage. The possibility alone is enough. The question hanging in the air makes people look at everything differently. You don't need confirmation that something was fake to stop trusting that it was real. The uncertainty alone changes the dynamic. And maybe the saddest part is how gentle this shift has been. Nobody wanted to stop believing in Meghan and Harry's story. People genuinely liked them. They rooted for them. They wanted the fairy tale of the couple who broke free and found happiness on their own terms to be true. But doubt doesn't care what people want. It just sits there, quiet and persistent, making everything feel less certain than it did before. The trust that felt solid now feels fragile.
Seem human, vulnerable, relatable, but now with the accusation alive and unanswered, those emotional...
The narrative that seemed unshakable has cracks running through it. And those cracks, they're not going away just because people wish they would. Because you can't unsee things once you start seeing them differently. When doubt settles into a story, it becomes part of that story. It colors memory, photos, interviews, moments that came before. This isn't about hate. It never was. It's about hesitation. The space between believing completely and questioning everything. The uncomfortable middle ground where nothing feels as certain as it once did. And that space, it's where Meghan and Harry's story sits right now. Not destroyed, but definitely different. Not proven false, but no longer taken at face value. Changed, whether they wanted it to be or not. So, where does this leave us? Right at the edge of something that could either fade away quietly.
I'm actually genuinely curious. Are there any fans of Meghan Markle in tonight?
No.
No.
Or explode into something nobody's ready for. Because here's the reality. That shop owner's story is still out there. The claim about the custom prosthetic request hasn't disappeared. And if anything concrete ever comes forward, everything changes. Think about what that would mean. The shop owner decides to speak publicly. Records exist, order forms, communications, payment receipts. Documentation shows someone connected to Meghan actually requested a custom pregnancy prosthetic. Then, this stops being speculation and becomes something entirely different. Not a rumor anymore. Not a conspiracy theory that people can dismiss. A documented transaction. The impact of something like that would be massive. We're not talking about a small scandal that blows over in a news cycle.
Interviewers sitting face to face with someone expecting gentle questions and royal treatment. Well,
This would fundamentally rewrite how people understand Meghan's most personal chapter. The pregnancy journey that millions watched, celebrated, and emotionally invested in would suddenly have a completely different story behind it. Photos, interviews, moments, all needing to be reconsidered through this new information. And the ripple effects. They'd go way beyond just Meghan and Harry. Media outlets that covered the pregnancy as straightforward news would have to reckon with what they reported. Publications that defended Meghan against criticism would need to reassess their stance. People who connected emotionally with her story would have to process feeling misled. It wouldn't just be about two people anymore. It would affect everyone who was part of that narrative. Hollywood would take notice too. Netflix, Spotify, the publishers, the production companies.
The Telegraph said it was an exercise in narcissism, saying Meghan invites people to her pretend house and they tell her how amazing.
All the partnerships built on authenticity and trust would suddenly be on shaky ground. Because in that industry, reputation is everything. Your brand built on being genuine gets questioned in such a fundamental way. It affects deals, projects, future opportunities, contracts reconsidered, projects paused. The entire foundation could start to crumble. But here's the thing. Even without concrete documentation coming forward, something has already shifted. The claim exists. The questions are out there, and they're not going away just because nobody's produced a receipt yet. Doubt doesn't need confirmation to do damage. The possibility alone has changed how people see things. That's the wild part. Actual reality might matter less than the fact that people are now uncertain about what reality is.
Another lie. And by the way, Meghan, if you don't like me calling you a liar, just sue me, and we'll go through all this in court.
Nothing more might come out. The shop owner never speaking publicly again, no documentation defined. This whole thing eventually fading into the background as other stories take over the news cycle. But even then, the questions linger. They sit in the back of people's minds, coloring how they see everything that comes after. Future interviews, new projects, public appearances, all viewed through this lens of uncertainty. Or something does surface. The shop owner decides the story needs to be told completely. Records come to light. Someone else who knows something decides to speak up. And then everything we're talking about right now becomes the before. The calm before the storm. The moment when things could have gone either way but hadn't tipped over yet. Here's what nobody knows. What comes next?
This has come as a shock to everybody. From what I can tell, even senior member of the royal family had no idea this was coming.
Not Meghan and Harry, not the media, not the millions of people watching this unfold. We're all in this weird space, waiting to see if more information emerges, waiting to see if the questions get answered or just continue multiplying, waiting to see whether this becomes a defining moment or just another controversy that eventually gets forgotten. But one thing's certain, something has changed. The story that was once protected, believed, and celebrated now exists in a state of uncertainty. And whether that uncertainty ever gets resolved or just becomes the permanent backdrop to everything that follows, the shift has happened. The door that was never meant to be opened is now open. And there's no closing it again. So, here we are. Most stories wrap up neatly, right? The curtain falls, the credits roll, everyone goes home. But this one's different, because what we're watching isn't an ending. It's a beginning.
They basically make out the entire royal family a bunch of white supremacists by dropping this race bombshell without...
What's that phrase?
They didn't...
A new chapter that Meghan and Harry don't get to write themselves. Shaped by questions they didn't want asked. Powered by doubt that wasn't supposed to exist. People aren't sitting around waiting for this to blow over. They're not looking for closure or a neat little bow to tie everything together. They're waiting for something else entirely. Answers. Whatever those end up being, waiting to see if the shop owner speaks up, if anything concrete surfaces, if the quiet question that started all of this finally gets an answer that makes sense. And right now, this story exists in this weird in-between space. What was shown to the world versus what might have actually happened behind closed doors. The carefully crafted image versus the messy reality that might be hiding underneath. It's the space where illusions start to wobble. Performances begin to crack. Where reality, whatever it turns out to be, is standing just out of sight.
Oh, no.
Really?
No. Sorry.
Imagine tuning into live.
Waiting for the right moment to step forward. When that moment comes, if it comes, the world will be watching. Not because people want to see someone fail or hope for a scandal, but because they invested in this story, believed in it, connected with it. And now they want to know if what they believed was real or if they've been seeing something else this whole time. For now, nothing's settled. The lights haven't dimmed, the music's still playing, the story hasn't found its ending yet. The stage is just sitting there waiting, and everyone who's been following along, they're leaning forward. What comes next? Was the fairy tale they watched unfold real or something else entirely? This isn't over, it's just getting started. And wherever it goes from here, whatever gets revealed or stays hidden, one thing's for sure.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really. Unless you want to say that's another of your jokes, but you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist.
The story everyone thought they knew has changed. The narrative has shifted. And there's no going back to how things were before. The door's open now, and nobody knows what's going to walk through it. So that's where things stand right now. A story that's far from over. If you found this as wild as I did, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to stay updated on what happens next, because trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Do you think there's something to this claim, or is it all just noise? And hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Because whatever comes next, you're going to want to be here for it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.